My right, that's to your left, all the way down to the back of the school on the corridor. Right? Please keep our phones on silence or vibrate. Let us this evening's activity. Senator Honorable Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Mrs. Naomi Jeremiah, Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, with responsibility for social development and gender affairs, staff of the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, facilitators, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, our online viewers here at home and in the diaspora, all joining us via Mic Live this evening. Pleasant afternoon to you. We thank you very much for your presence and your participation, and to us, it is invaluable. Today, we will be focusing on two crucial topics: legal insights and sexpectations and gender-based violence, GBV, which seeks to deepen our understanding to these issues and discuss how we can take effective action. And just a reminder, it is an initiative of the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, the Gender-Based Violence Unit. It is a continuation engagement session. We would have had it before. I think in the Grove area, Mountain area, we would have had it a few places. So we are continuing our bench to eradicate, to curb, to eliminate gender-based violence. Before we continue, let us do our prayer. And I'm going to ask the Gender Program Officer, Ms. Anderson Richardson, to lead us in prayer.
Pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Kindly join me in standing as we reverence the Lord. Great and eternal God, we thank you for life. We thank you, O God, for being here. We thank you, O God, for such a wonderful initiative where we can learn, where we can be empowered about gender-based violence, its effects, how we can get help. We thank you, O God, for each and every one of us who would have made it possible to be here. We pray, O God, from the very onset that you will take full charge and control. O God, that you will bless us all, that you will bless our presenters, that you will bless those of us that are receiving information, both physically and virtually, that the information, O God, will be impactful, it will be meaningful, and that in the end, O God, our lives will be benefited in a positive way from the information provided, and that the initiative, O God, will be one, O God, of a successful, one, O God, that is meaningful, O God, and one that will be impactful, and one that we remember, O God, forever. Bless us as we proceed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Kindly have your seat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. Let me start by introducing the Gender-Based Violence Unit, or GBVU. The GBVU is dedicated to addressing and combating intimate partner violence and sexual violence throughout the nation. Our aim is to build safer communities by working closely with various partners. We strive to offer comprehensive support to those affected by gender-based violence. This includes not only direct assistance to survivors, but also preventative measures and educational initiatives to address and reduce gender-based violence. The Gender-Based Violence Unit Helpline 417-2167. 417-2167. The statistics of gender-based violence here in Grenada is becoming very alarming, disproportionately affecting mostly women and girls. And according to the United Nations, over 1/3 of women and girls globally will experience some form of violence in their lifetime. However, this rate is higher in emergencies, conflict, and crisis, where vulnerability and risk are increased, and most often, family, community, and legal protections have broken down. Gender-based violence can happen to anyone and knows no social, economic, or national boundaries. And as such, the ministry is working to respond and reduce gender-based violence, and we continue to work with our social partners to ensure that we assist persons needing our assistance in the best possible way. I now invite our esteemed Minister, Senator Honorable Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, to give some brief remarks. Minister Thomas.
Thank you, Masters of Ceremony. Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Naomi Jeremiah, in the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, with responsibility for social development and gender affairs. Presenters, Officer Nancy Joseph and Mrs. Janelle Sylvester Gill, staff of the Ministry of Social and Community Development, presenters, I say presenters, members of the public, boys and girls, the media. This afternoon is another important afternoon as we embark on the sensitization exercise. Gender-based violence is a scourge which we must attempt to get rid of in society. If we observe the statistics, we will recognize that nearly 4 in every 10 women have been impacted by gender-based violence sometime in their life. As a ministry, we continue to educate the population. We want to sensitize you as to the whole question of GBV so that you will be more or less educated as to how to respond, how to act, what steps to take, and how to protect yourselves. As a government, we are ensuring that this scourge is reduced. And we're not talking the talk, but we're walking the talk. We are going about in communities to meet with persons on the local front to give them an opportunity not only to listen to us, but also to ask questions, to seek clarification, and to get the necessary information that they can use to more or less be educated on the whole question of gender-based violence. We have two ably women here this afternoon who will be able to take us through this evening's session. Officer Nancy will be looking at the legal insights, and Mrs. Gill will be looking at sex expectation and the GBV. I can assure you that both sessions will be informative and very interactive. So with an open mind, just sit back and listen, take information, and ask your questions to seek greater clarity. We thank you for coming. We thank you for being part of the session here this afternoon, and we trust that you will learn something when you leave here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And as Minister would have reassured us that government continues to play its part to assist each and every one of you, even those who are not here, those who are scared to speak up, there's help for you. We will continue to stress the areas and the places, the organizations that you can speak to, the people you can speak to assist you in whatever way we can. Thank you so much, Minister. I now invite Officer Nancy Joseph, attached to the Special Victims Unit, to do her presentation.
Yeah, just. Good afternoon, everyone. Senator Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social Development and Gender Affairs, Permanent Secretary in the same ministry, Mrs. Naomi Jeffrey, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Sergeant Nancy Joseph. I am here representing the Royal Grenada Police Force this afternoon. I am attached to the Special Victims Department of the said Royal Grenada Police Force. That department is solely responsible for dealing with issues pertaining to domestic violence, sexual violence, and issues pertaining to child abuse. So as I said, domestic violence, as Ms. Thomas would have pointed out, is a silent epidemic that we experience. It's often hidden behind closed doors, but its effects echo loudly in the lives of survivors, their families, and the society as a whole. So this afternoon, I'm going to give you some information as to the legal insight on gender-based violence. And gender-based violence includes a wide range of offenses that target individuals based on their gender, typically aimed at women, girls, or marginalized groups. Some of these offenses tend to stem from physical abuse, the emotional abuse, the sexual violence, and so on and so forth. So pay attention to the screen this afternoon as I give you the information that is necessary when you want to share with your friends, or it becomes information that you yourself may need to assist or get assistance for yourself. So first of all, I'm going to let you know what is sexual violence. So if you look at the screen, we say that is the unlawful and intentional sexual violence of another person without his or her consent. It is sexual conduct that abuses, it humiliates, or it violates the sexual integrity of a person. And that definition came directly out of the Domestic Violence Act of 2010. Domestic violence here means any controlling, when you have a partner in a relationship that controls you, they have abusive behaviors, and that behavior would in turn harm your health, your safety or well-being of a person or a child, and it includes but is not limited to physical abuse or threats of physical abuse, sexual abuse or threats of sexual abuse, emotional, verbal, or psychological abuse, economic abuse, the intimidation, harassment. It goes further, it speaks to stalking, it speaks to damage or destruction of your property, or entry into the applicant's residence without consent when the parties do not share the same residence. So domestic violence covers a large range of offenses or different types of actions. So sometimes you're in a relationship and the person is withholding monies from you. They're constantly threatening you. They're telling you all sorts of threats. They're making derogatory statements to you. All these are considered to be domestic violence issues. Mandatory reporting. Mandatory reporting of a suspected sexual abuse of a child. It says that in subsection 183D, subsection 1, it speaks plainly and it says that any person who is a parent or a guardian of a child has the actual custody or charge or control of a child, and you have a reasonable ground, you would have some sort of suspicion, you would have seen something, you would have heard something, you would have noticed something about that child has been sexually abused, or a sexual offense has been committed in respect of that child, you shall report your grounds for such a belief to the police as soon as possible. And if you fail to do that, having noted all of these aspects about the child, then you commit an offense on summary conviction, and you can be fined a total of $15,000, or you can be sentenced to prison for a term not exceeding 7 years, or the magistrate may deem that you can either be sentenced or charge the money together. So the duties of a police officer when it comes to issues of domestic violence. So the law says, under the domestic violence law, it says that a police officer shall respond to every complaint or report alleging domestic violence, whether or not the person making the complaint or the report is the victim. So once a person calls the police and they pass information that there is a domestic abuse taking place in that home, in that corner, whatever place, the police should respond. It doesn't necessarily have to be that it's the person who is getting abused or within the household has to make the call. Anybody who is around and you see or you're hearing, or if you listen to Ms. Grant on a Wednesday morning on Real FM, she says if you see something, if you hear something, then you say something. So once you see those acts that are being committed and you call, you pass the information to the police should respond. And when we respond, we shall complete a domestic violence report. We shall form part of a domestic violence register, and it should be maintained by the Chief of Police in a prescribed manner. So at my department, we have a domestic violence register when we respond to domestic violence reports, and where we put all the relevant information into that register and pass the information on to other entities who are responsible for maybe counseling, or if social development has to assist in whatever manner, be it financial, whatever support that person will require at that time, then it is lodged there in our domestic violence register, and the information is shared amongst the different stakeholders. So when the police respond to the report, sometimes persons get upset. They say the police asks too much questions. You call, you say, officer, I'll call and make a report. All these questions you have to ask me, but the police need to gather the information. Because without information, the police cannot act properly and accordingly. So they would ask for the name of the persons who are involved in the altercation or the abuse that you would have noticed. They may go as far as to ask you what is the relation and the sex of the parties, be it both male, man and woman. Are you related to them? Do you belong in the same household? Are you a neighbor reporting what you've heard? They would ask information from you. Information relating to the history of the domestic violence between the parties. They probably may ask you, is this a first-time occurrence? Has this happened before at your neighbor's house? Have you seen something like that happening before with that same person or persons? The date and time the complaint was received, and the type of the abuse and the weapon used. So these are some of the information that the police require in order to facilitate our information gathering and to share across with the stakeholders to ensure that persons receive the assistance and the necessary support that they need. Subsection 21 under the Domestic Violence Act, it gives the police the authority to arrest someone on the scene of an incident of domestic violence without a warrant, whom he or she reasonably suspects of having committed an act of domestic violence. So let's say, for instance, the police responds. We go to a household and it's apparent that something would have happened. We see one person with bruises or one person with blood on them. We see somebody, a party with torn clothing, then definitely we know something has happened. And one party is complaining against the other party for causing the injury or causing the damage to property to them. Now, one police officer may, at the scene of the incident, arrest the party who is responsible for causing the offense against the other person. So we do not need to go and come back, or sometimes. Once it is a situation where we deem it to be volatile or it might spiral out of control, the law gives the police officer the authority to act there and then and arrest that offending party. So we have protection orders that are available for persons who are victims of domestic violence or domestic abuse. These orders are there for the protection of persons who may fear for their lives when they are in existing relationships where domestic violence is a continuance. It keeps happening. No matter how many counseling sessions that you go to, no matter how many times the person says to you, I am changing, I am not going to do this anymore, this is the last time. We have now put something in the law that makes it that gives protection to the victim in those situations. So a protection order is an order used by the court to protect persons who are victims of domestic violence. And that person may apply to the court for the protection order on the grounds that the defendant or the respondent engage in some sort of domestic violence. So the application may be made, when I say application may be made, somebody who can apply for a protection order can be the spouse. So whether you're the husband or the wife of the respondent, be it male or female, you can apply for a protection order. Somebody who lives within the household, a member of the shared household, either on the behalf of the person who is on the receiving end of the abuse or on their behalf. On behalf of any other member of the shared household, on behalf of a child, a dependent, a parent, or a sibling by blood marriage of either the spouse or the respondent, meaning a child that the person would have a biological child of both parties can apply for a protection order, even if you do not live within the household. So a classic example would be like maybe your mom and dad live in a household on their own and you live separately, but you know there are instances of domestic violence taking place in the household. You now can go before the court and make application for a protection order on either of your parents' behalf, on the victim's behalf. A person who has a child in common with the respondent. So that speaks to persons who would have had children before and the relationship would have ended and one party is now moved on and in another relationship, and in that relationship, that party is now experiencing domestic abuse. So that other parent can now apply for a protection order on behalf of that child who is within that household. A person who was engaged, dating, or has been in a visiting relationship with a person of the opposite sex. So it goes as far as dating relationships and where you don't live within the same household as the party. You may have a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. The relationship has taken a turn for the worse. You start seeing a lot of different things that you do not like. What the common saying these days is that you start seeing a lot of red flags. You see the controlling behavior. You see the intimidation. You can't use your phone. You can't post as you would like on social media. You can't speak to a particular person. The protection order also extends to cover you as a victim. You can access a protection order through the court to protect yourself. How does one access the protection order? So you can visit your magistrate's court or the police station within your district. There has been some issues where persons would report an incident, let's say an incident happened at St. George's, and you live here in St. Andrew, what would happen is that you would make the complaint at this station in St. George, but you would be required to take the protection order out within your district where you live. So you'll be sent back to the Grenville Magistrate Court to visit that presiding magistrate there, who would look over your protection order and the information that is being laid before her before she gives or grants the protection order. So you can visit the court's office, and the court clerks there would assist you, or you can walk into the police station, one of your nearest, the police station at Grenville. You can go to Birch Grove, Hermitage, or you can come into the Special Victims Department at St. George's, and we would assist you in filling out the protection order forms. And then we would direct you as to the process that you would have to go through. You would first have to go to the registrar, get a stamp affixed to that form. Then you would go to sit with the magistrate, and she would listen to the information that you would be given in order to get that protection order. Based on the information that is given to her, she would then make the determination whether or not the order is granted. So the final say as to the granting of the protection order lies with the presiding magistrate within that particular district. You will then be given the option of private service through the court, or you can bring that protection order back to the police to get it served on the respondent on your behalf. Once that order is served, you will be given feedback from whichever party. If it is the court or the police, they will say to you, hey, we've served the order. There is a date fixed on it that you need to attend court at X, Y, and Z time, and you need to appear at the court date and the time. Most times we have instances where people would come, they would access the orders, and when the orders are granted, the court date finally comes up and the persons do not appear in court. If you have been granted an order, you no longer wish for the order to be in effect, then it is now your responsibility to appear before that presiding magistrate and say, ma'am, I no longer am in fear for my life. I would like to withdraw the protection order. That magistrate would have conversations with you, and then they would go about the process of withdrawing the order or probably extending it for a period of time. So there are some penalties that are affixed to a breach of a protection order. And it speaks to section 18, subsection 2. It says that a person who commits an offense under this subsection is liable on a first summary conviction. So summary here means at the magistrate court level. And you can be fined not exceeding $5,000 or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 18 months. So the protection order can be breached in many different ways. There are some terms and conditions that would be affixed to that order. The person may be asked to leave the shared household. That person may be asked to not have any communication with you. That person may be asked to not speak to anyone who would then speak to you to aid them in further abuse of you. So once they breach any one of these terms and conditions that are attached to the protection order, then this is one of the penalties that they would face on the first breach of that order. If that person continues and they were to breach the order for a second time, so it says on a second summary conviction, there will be a fine not exceeding $10,000. So the magistrate would have the latitude of charging somebody between $1 and $10,000, or to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 2 years, or to both. So they can fine you, and then they can still confine you, meaning send you to prison. So any subsequent summary conviction after that, meaning any other breaches of that order thereafter, you may get a period of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years. So it's a very important piece of document that comes with a lot of penalties that a lot of persons would not be able to face. So we want to encourage persons to come forward, get the necessary help and assistance that you would need. We have the Special Victims Department that specifically deals with these issues and would give assistance as necessary. And we collaborate with the Gender-Based Violence Unit. We collaborate with the Legal Aid and Counseling Unit. We collaborate with the Child Protection Agency. All of these agencies work hand in hand as it relates to families. So we deal with women, children, they deal with counseling aspect, they deal with the financial aspect, whatever assistance that you would need as a victim of either sexual or domestic abuse, then the ministry has it set up in order to help you. So this is a cry this afternoon for persons to speak up, to come forward, and to break this silence. And not only on your behalf, but on the behalf of other persons you know that are going through that type of situation. We have to remember too, and we have to remember and realize that domestic violence is thought that it's a cycle. So sometimes we look at persons and we're saying, why doesn't that person leave that relationship? It's not good for them, it's not working out. But we have to remember that the person goes through a different cycle each time they experience abuse. And it may take a person up to as much as 10 times going through that cycle before they're actually strong enough and they're bold enough to set their foot out and never step back into a relationship like that. So I would leave you with our numbers. Our numbers are, we have a hotline, which is 400. We're easily accessible, and it's a 24-hour hotline. You dial 400, you pass the information to the officer who would answer on that line, or the traditional 911 is always available. Our office numbers are 440-4739, 400, the 911 number. So my parting words with you this afternoon is to stay alert and to be your brother's keeper, and to remind you that we expect you to, if you see something, you hear something, and you know something, that you step forward and you say something. Any questions from anybody this afternoon before I leave? All right, so thank you so much for your attention. It was indeed a pleasure to give the information this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Officer Joseph. And victims, remember, things are in place for you. You speak up. You need to speak up. You need to come forward. That's the only way you can get assistance. That's the only way we can assist you, by you sharing that information. You have to provide us with the information so that we can assist you. And to those of you who are here, if you're scared to speak out here, remember, there are numbers that you can call. You can call the Ministry of Social and Community Development at 440-2269, or the Gender-Based Violence Unit helpline at 417-6167. Earlier I said 2167. That's what I saw. That was an error. So the number is 417-6167 and not 21. Okay? So those of you who may know someone experiencing violence, gender-based violence, you too can use these numbers to assist your friend. You see something, say something. You hear something, say something. You know something, say something. We now have a musical interlude by one of the members of the Royal Grenada Police Force Band. Okay, well, we won't be having that piece again, so we will continue with the session. So we call on Janine Sylvester Gill, sexual and reproductive health and rights advocate, to share with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Minister, PS, fellow presenters, ladies and gentlemen. I'm vertically challenged, so I'll come around. Good afternoon. So, as was introduced, I will be dealing with and I'm hoping that we have a discussion on the topic, which is sexpectations and gender-based violence. Now, some of you may be saying, first time you're hearing this word, sexpectations. Yes? Anybody ever heard about the word before? You heard of the word sexpectations? Never? So, when you see the word, what comes to mind? Sex and expectations. So we're going to be talking about what are the expectations when it comes to sex and intimacy, and how do these expectations, these sexpectations, how are they linked to gender-based violence, right? So my fellow presenter would have spoken a lot about domestic violence and so we're going to get into what is, and just basically, I'm getting some feedback, right? What is, I'm going to cover what is gender-based violence. Similarly, right, when we look at gender-based violence, it is same domestic violence, intimate partner violence that we speak about, but it is violence that is as a result of gender. And gender, we get into what gender is. So we talk about the same physical violence, the sexual violence, emotional and psychological violence, and economic violence, right? When you say you hold the money, we say you're holding the money unless you hands up certain favors. That is economic violence. Yes? All right. So when we refer to sexpectations, we refer to our societal, our cultural, our personal expectations that we have when it comes to sex and intimacy, right? And what our expectations are, if we have certain expectations, then that will definitely influence our attitudes, our behaviors, how we act when it comes to relationships, how we act in relationships. What are we expecting in our relationships? What are our expectations in the relationships, right? So basically, the expectations, our sexpectations are our assumptions. What do we assume? What are the norms? What is the usual type of behavior when it comes to sex and sexual behavior, all right? And they are influenced by gender roles. All right. So, lots of information here, right? But a lot of reasons, a lot of things influence, right? A lot of factors influence our sexpectations, right? We have our cultural norms, and this is where I say this is time for us to really look at it. When we talk about gender, and I'll go and come back. We talk about sex. Sex is biological differences. When you're born, on your birth certificate, on the births and deaths register, they say a boy child born to Mary, a girl child born to Jane, right? So that's the biological differences. We're born male or female. So we have certain chromosomes, hormones, our anatomy is different, right? Gender, when we talk about gender, you're talking about the roles, the behaviors, the expectations that society have placed on us, that society has assigned to individuals based on their perceived sex, right? So, gender reveal parties. We talk about culturally. How do we look at gender? Everybody, you get the great news, you're having a baby, you're expecting a new one. Everybody these days wants to have an ultrasound done. They want to know what they're having. Why? Why? You want to go shopping? You want to go shopping. What are you shopping for? Culturally, you want to buy the baby clothes, and so culturally, the norm is with boys, what color clothes we buying? Blue. We buying the blues and the greens. For the girls, pink and a whole set of lace. Yes? Because that's our cultural norm. That's this, when we're talking about gender, that is what society assigns to boys and what society assigns to girls. They get a little bigger. You're buying toys and stuff for the children. Yes, what we buy for the boys? Cars, trucks, hammers, yes, tractors. Girls? Dollies, teddy bears, and tea sets. What are we telling our children then? The culture is that we buy certain things for boys and we assign them certain roles. Automatically, when they're growing up, boys are wearing the harsher colors, yes? Boys are getting the toys that are grooming them then to be the more aggressive. If you buy a boy a doll, it's a G.I. Joe. He's a soldier, yes? So that he is the more aggressive. And the girls, we give them dolls and tea sets. And so we teach them, we instill on them that their role is to be the nurturers, the carers. They have their ready-made, they start playing family from very early because they have their babies. And the household chores that are usually assigned to girls, it's the chores on the inside. So they're washing the wares and they're keeping the house. Yes? How we treat our boys, and this affects our expectations. When the boys are growing up and they're playing and stuff like that, if a boy falls down, it's one thing. The girl falls down, the girl comes crying. What are we saying? Don't cry, we pat, it's okay, cry if you want to, it's okay. If the boy falls down and he starts to cry, what do we say? Stop that, you're a little girl. Right? The expectation is that they don't show emotions. We will see how that affects our relationships and our expectations, right? When we get into relationships. But just remember then that the key difference between the two is that sex is biological and gender is a social and a cultural construct, right? As we said, traditional masculine and feminine roles, masculinity and sexuality, even our anatomy, the names we give to our anatomy, our body parts. For those of you who have seen the previous presentations, I apologize, I'm going to repeat myself for those of you here for the first time hearing me. Yes, I will call body parts by their names. So just as how we have eyes and ears and nose and mouth, we have legs and penises and vaginas. Yes? But culturally, we don't teach our children that. Culturally, the names we give to our reproductive health organs take on a gender role as well. So the little girls, we have butterflies, yes? Very soft, gentle names, yes? And for the young men, boys are taught, and young men take pride in naming their anatomy, their reproductive health parts, very strong, aggressive names, yes? Anaconda, bringing the thunder, yes? Because that's what our society has given us. This is a cultural aspect. And so all of these things influence our expectations. What do we expect? So traditionally, the norms have it that men are the most dominant, they're the most sexually active, and less emotionally expressive ones in the relationship. Not right? That's correct? Right. So these men are under pressure to initiate sex. Young men in the group, yeah, it's odd. Or we culturally, we think differently of young ladies who initiate sex. For all of you adults in the group, when you think back to your relationships, traditionally, women tend to wait on the man to initiate. Think of your relationships. Don't put up your hand, be on camera. I don't want to see, I don't want to know. But if you think back to your own experiences, who is the one to initiate? Most times, men, right? Right. So they're under pressure to initiate. Don't mind, the man might be a little frightened for himself and that kind of thing. He might be hoping that the young lady says something, make a move, give a little signal. But traditionally, our culture, our norms, have them under pressure to be the ones to initiate, right? They have to meet performance standards because the talk on the block is how many, and I have here number of partners as well. The more the merrier. You get more stripes as if you're in the army. You're a general with the more partners you have. And culturally, we kind of accept it. That it's okay for men to have more than one partner at a time, to have a lot of women. He could handle, right? Plenty girls. On the other hand, the women, we are traditionally expected to be the more passive, nurturing ones. We have to be very selective about our partners, right? Our pressure is to prioritize our emotional intimacy, and we adhere to whatever society has given us, right? The societal norms around modesty and sexual restraint. If the woman were the one being the aggressor, initiating, and if she were the one having the multiple partners, and according to the young people now, you all have to get with it, suppose she has a high body count. What do we think of her? Do we put the same positive spin that we put on the men? No, right? So we get a different spin altogether when it is women, right? It impacts our men, it impacts our women in the relationships. For men, the expectation to perform. Masculinity is often associated with virility. The more you have, the more women you have, the more children you have, right? And sexual prowess. Men are afraid to be vulnerable because we have taught them to be aggressive and to hold back on their emotions. They're more pressured, they're afraid to be vulnerable and to speak to their partners about what their expectations are. What are they expecting when they get into an intimate relationship with their partner? Right? Women, we are objectified, right? We're often seen through a sexual lens, right? So depending on what clothes we wear, if we wear short clothes, we are sexualized. We say, oh, what you try, right? Leading to pressure to conform to beauty standards. We women spend a lot of money, a lot of time. We invest in how we look because we're trying to meet the norms, the expectations of what society thinks of us. Everybody's on a weight loss program because the ideal model is that Barbie figure. We're all not going to be 5'8", 120 pounds, right? So we have that fear of judgment. Sometimes we have a fear of being labeled as being too sexy, right? Or sometimes not sexy enough. So if I don't want to spend money on my hair and stuff like that, oh, she really let herself go, right? She don't like man, she doesn't keep up herself, right? So we have those expectations, right? I'm going to skip a little bit. The double standards, as I spoke about, what we expect of men and what we expect of women and how we label men and women when they are, right? But there are reasons, there are things that really influence how our expectations are shaped, right? Besides our culture, our music, the music we listen to, the type of music we listen to, If you listen, I'm sorry you didn't get the musical interlude before this. The type of music that you probably hear, the lyrics of the music influences what to expect. If you have music where the lyrics is you're constantly bombarded about the conquer of the act and how you're going to do the act, and it's always a slam and a jam and a ram and a... Then your behavior is influenced by that. I feel sorry for the generations coming, Generation Y, Z. You know, the music, the lyrics of the music is so heavily sexual that that's what they're hearing, what they see on TV. We have more channels now, so they're exposed to all kinds of things. Mass media, they're exposed to a lot of different images more than they were before. But these images kind of reinforce some of the traditional roles and stereotypes, right? And so it's difficult sometimes when you have young persons and you're trying to educate them and say, listen, you have to raise your standard. You don't expect that. You look at media. So I say to people, I say, porn has really done a lot in a negative way to our society, because there are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to porn. Porn is a false idea. When people watch porn, they figure they can do what they see the people doing. And so they expect partners to do the same thing when they're being intimate. When that doesn't happen, our expectations, our sexpectations are not met. And then we have disagreements, right? Unrealistic portrayals by the media, right? And then you have a struggle for those of us trying to counteract this media influence, right? We're trying to promote diverse, healthy representations of gender and sexuality in the media. I'm going to quickly. So we spoke about gender-based violence. We spoke about sexpectations. How are those two linked? How do we link sexpectations? How does our sexpectation influence or impact the data that we get in on GBV? What happens, right? There's a power dynamic. Where we have the power dynamic where we have these false expectations, harmful sexpectations, where persons expect certain behaviors. If you're in a relationship, if you're intimate with someone, and the lady is the instigator, what is the issue that arises, right? You might say, okay, well, you may have believed that this person may not have been very experienced. But because she initiates, you say, you were lying to me, man. You've been around the block a few times well. Right? And that creates mistrust. It creates an issue within the relationship. The power struggle then. Who does what? Who contributes? Somebody says to me, well, how am I supposed to know? Right? That when the expectation that the man is the more dominant partner in intimacy and the woman is submissive, it sometimes results in the high numbers of abuse that we see happening, right? It normalizes abusive behavior because the man is supposed to rough up the woman. And that's the norm. And we hear people saying a lot of the times, they say, well, if you don't hit me, you don't love me. Because that's the norm that they've created, that our society has created. And so they believe that, right? We normalize violence. As we said, the lyrics of the music and all of that, the scenes that we see, societal norms that glamorize or trivialize violence in relationships can lead to the acceptance of gender-based violence. When everybody doing it, when it's seen on a regular basis, you talk about it and you're not seeing the impact of the negative impacts, you say, well, that's the norm. Our young women, our young men are growing up thinking that this is what I am expected to do when I get into my relationship, right? We have victim blaming. Sexpectations can lead to victim blaming, where you have persons who are the victims of gender-based violence are held responsible for their violence. She looked for that. He looked for that. And I want to stick a pin here and make sure that you understand that gender-based violence is not only violence men on women. It is also the other way around, right? And so when the expectation is, if a woman has the expectation that the man has to be the more dominant and more aggressive, if he is not, then she has a problem with it. Right? She'll call him all kinds of names. Yeah? Right? And if she is not satisfied, if he's not meeting her expectations, then there's a possibility that she'll go somewhere else and be willing to be with someone else who is meeting her expectations. Right? When we have misguided expectations, it can prevent survivors of GBV from seeking help, right? So because they're afraid, people are afraid to seek help because they're afraid people are going to judge them, right? People will not believe that they're being abused, that they're victims of violence, right? When you have an expectation, when you get into an intimate relationship and you have a certain expectation and it's not met, what happens? And this happens across the board, as I say, men and women, and different ages. It's not just young people, we have older people too. When you go through different stages of growth and development and stuff like that, grown folks, I've worked with older couples as well. When women get to a certain age and stage when they're entering menopause, a natural biological reaction of the body is that there are certain changes to the anatomy, which may make sexual encounters, experiences not as enjoyable. We have children here, I don't want to get into, right? And so they may not be interested in intimacy as they were before. And as soon as she says to you, not tonight. You have somebody else? What's the problem? Right? Women do it too. I've had a client who said to me, he said, Miss, I work hard the whole week. I think I went online, yes, I had 2 drinks and stuff like that. I come home, and because I did not perform how she expected, he said, I was tired, I wanted to take a little sleep first. Trouble, she wake him up, she wet him down, she said, hey, where you come out? Right? Because he is supposed to perform every night or every time he comes for a certain period of time, that kind of thing. And so women are aggressive as well. Her expectation was not met because she expects him to perform and to do certain things. The men expect the women to perform and do certain things. So if we go back to the traditional norms, the women are supposed to be submissive. I'm looking around in the crowd, right? So God helps the woman who flips him on his back and take charge, because that's not the expectation according to the traditional gender roles, right? What is the expectation of the man to be able to express how he is feeling in a relationship? Can he be emotional? What is her expectation? Right? What happens if the woman is too emotional? All of these things lead to gender-based violence because our expectations are not being met. How can we prevent it though? Simple task. Communication. It's important that we communicate. Open conversations, which is why we normally recommend pre-marriage counseling. What do you expect of your partner when it comes to intimate relationships, when you're getting married, when you're getting involved? What are the expectations? Have open conversations about what you desire, what you like, what you don't like. There are some people who like to be spanked. There's some people who say, don't even make the mistake and touch me so. Right? But you say what your expectations are. Say very clearly where your boundaries are. Right? And so your open communication creates a healthier sexual relationship. Right? Consent and mutual respect is key. Ensure that both partners understand and respect each other's needs and boundaries. Right? When we talk about consent, sometimes a lady said to me, well, you ain't talking about married people. I said, how you mean? So I supposed to give consent to my husband? The husband said, yeah. No, there ain't no such thing as consent. Once we married, you are mine. When I say we do. So much for consent. So much for a partner saying that they're not really in the mood right now. Right? A lot of persons say to me, Miss, that child, number 5, 6, and 7, custom is where he come, he get. I have to give. If I don't give, we have either the financial abuse, because if you don't hands up, according to people, if you don't, when they tap, if you don't turn over, then you don't get out of the pocket. Right? If you don't, that's a financial. For others, they get physical. If they tap and you don't turn over, you get a strike. Right? And you have the physical assault. If they tap and they don't turn over, then they hold it over your head and they play a whole guilt game around you, and that's the emotional abuse. Constantly accusing of cheating and lying and all of that, and that's the emotional abuse within the relationship. All because you have not communicated what your expectations are. Right? We've got to degender our expectations. Who says that this is the role the man's supposed to play, and who says that is it? Some people say the Bible, go to Solomon. Solomon talk a lot about intimacy. He never said that one's supposed to be over the other and have dominance. Intimacy is about sharing, and sharing of roles and responsibilities, and being open and communicating. Okay? So we have to kind of degender these expectations. Women can take charge. Men can be docile at some time. You know? But it is what you expect. Things are changing. People are becoming more expressive, more vocal, and we encourage that. Be vocal about what you expect from your partner. If you don't have that communication, if you don't have that clear communication, miscommunication causes anger. Miscommunication causes people to be embarrassed. Miscommunication can lead to depression. And all of these things affect your intimacy in your relationships. All of these things can lead to And I tell people that a lot of men become violent, right? When they are embarrassed. When men get embarrassed, they get angry because you're trying to embarrass me. And if I'm angry because you're trying to embarrass me, I'm going to prove to you that I am a man. Yes? And so everything is linked, but can be prevented with clear communication, clear expectations. And we have to teach our children from young what to expect. What do you expect in relationships? How do you expect to be treated as a young lady, as a man? Right? Clear communication. So we are, how to combat GBV? As we say, promote gender equality, advocate for policies, provide comprehensive sexuality education. And this is part of how we teach our children, what we show our children. Our children, the old adage say, children live what they learn. If they see a healthy relationship in a household, they are going to, more than likely, chances are they're going to copy and have the expectations of a healthy relationship. If they see a dysfunctional family and dysfunctional relationship, that's what they learn. Right? This is how my father handled this business, this is what I'll do. The young ladies see, well, my mother did that, that's fine, then that's what I guess that's my role as a woman. But we teach them from young. Everything age appropriate. When people hear me say comprehensive sexuality education, it is age appropriate content. And you start from young, just as I say, when we name body parts, you teach the proper body parts. You teach good touch, bad touch. Where people should touch you and where they should not. How they should handle you and how they should not. Right? And you teach it as they grow so that they can speak about it and state very clearly. They know where their boundaries are, they know what their expectations are, they know what their expectations are when they become adults. Right? We've got to challenge the harmful norms. Just as how a lot of the negative messages are coming through the media, we have to use the media and public platforms to challenge and change the thinking, right? Change the harmful expectations and the stereotypes that we have with these expectations. And we've got to support those who survive gender-based violence. Do we have any questions? I want to thank you. I'm hoping I kept on time. Any questions, any concerns, comments, clarification? If not, I thank you very much for participating in the session.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sylvester Gill, for that wonderful sharing on sexpectation and GBV. Persons are sitting and not asking questions. I hope we would have been absorbing what is being said here tonight so that we can get the assistance that we need. We'll now have the musical interlude by a member of the Royal Grenada Police Force Band. Thank you very much. A beautiful piece. Oh, we have another piece? That was the last of it. Thank you very much. That was very soothing, as always. I saw persons nodding, so I know it was enjoyed. Thank you very much, sir. Now we would have a bit more engagement. We get you, the audience, involved. We have the trivia questions, and it's going to be done by Mr. Richardson.
All right, so good night, everybody.
All right, so let's break from the formal to a little bit informal. Let's warm up a little bit, all right? So I want to ask you some questions, and when you give me the correct answer, you'll be rewarded with a prize, all right? So let's take part. The first question. What is the main export product of Grenada? What is the main export product of Grenada? Your options are A, coffee, B, sugar, C, nutmeg, D, cocoa. C, that's correct. Let's put our hands together for her. Come forward for your gift. Mommy Sharpman. Let's put our hands together. All right, so we're moving along. Question number 2. What does GBV stands for? What does GBV stands for?
Gender-based violence.
All right, so the person in the pink, come forward, come forward. Let's put our hands together for her. Very well, very well. Question number 3. Name one type of violence experienced by victims of gender-based violence. All right. Go a little deeper. All right. All right. Give me something just...
It could be emotionally.
Ah, you're touching it there now. Come forward, come forward. Let's put our hands together for her. Yes, 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 yes. We're moving right along. Question number 4. And that one is a true or false question. So you need to listen carefully. All right? Gender-based violence can have long-lasting psychological and physical effects on victims. Is that true or false? All right? My friend over there, let's put our hands together for her. Yes, we're moving along nicely. Question number 5. Question number 5. What is the national dish of Grenada? All right, mommy. Mommy, yes, yes. Come forward for your gift. Very well. Question number 6. This one is a true or false question again. Approximately 1 in 3 women have experienced physical and sexual violence in their lifetime. Approximately 1 in 3 women have experienced physical and sexual violence in their lifetime. Is that true or is that false? All right, so our friend at the back in black, that is true. Very well, very well. So it means that we were paying attention. Yes, it means that we were paying attention. And our final question. What is the full name of the ministry that is hosting this event here tonight? What is the full name? I don't want part of the name. I want the full name in the proper order. So, right, that's a good try, but it's not quite it. You have some of it, but it's not quite that. No staff, no staff, no staff, no staff can take part. No staff, no staff. I'm sorry, my friend. No staff. Let's give somebody else an opportunity. No staff, no staff. Wow, we have a little one at the back. Let's hear. Let's hear it.
The Ministry of Social Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
I go accept that. I go accept that. I will accept that. I will accept that. So it's the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. That's the ministry that is having this activity here tonight. Now we have some special prizes. Come forward for your gift. Don't be shy. Let's put our hands together for her. We're a ministry that believes in awarding people and rewarding people. So the earliest person to arrive here this afternoon, just by that, you earn yourself a nice prize. Miss Claudia Paulson, our earliest arriving attendant. Come forward, Mom, come forward. Let's put our hands together for her. Yes, yes. Our youngest adult present here tonight, Leon Hosford. Yes, let's put our hands together for him. The youngest child here tonight, Joshua Patterson. Joshua? Let's put our hands together for him. Right, right. We have some other children in our midst that we want to award specially for being here tonight. We have Austin Harriman, Tavia Joseph, and Kelisha George. Come forward, please. And I'm seeing mommy and baby. So mommy, we want to give you a gift, right? Baby won't be able to enjoy the gift, but we'll give mommy the gift on behalf of baby. Come forward, mommy and baby. Let's put our hands together for them. Baby in his nice blue armless vest. Let's put our hands together for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your participation, audience. We now have the vote of thanks, and that will be done by Mr. Anderson Richardson, Program Officer.
Probably I could have just stayed. All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So in everything we must give thanks, yeah? You believe that? And so my task is to say thank you. So on behalf of the Gender-Based Violence Unit, I am pleased to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who contributed to making this community engagement a success. I would like to express heartfelt thank you to our Minister Thomas for her unwavering support, dedication, and invaluable contribution to the ministry's initiatives. Her presence and insightful remarks continue to inspire and guide our work. A special thank you to our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Naomi Jeremiah, for her steadfast leadership, guidance, and relentless commitment to the community engagement sessions. Your support has been instrumental in driving our efforts forward. To our esteemed facilitators, Sergeant Nancy Joseph from the Special Victims Unit and Mrs. Gill, Sexual Reproductive Health and Rights Advocate, thank you for your insightful presentation on legal insights related to gender-based violence and compiling this session on sex expectations and gender-based violence. Your expertise and dedication are truly appreciated. Special thank you to our hosts, Ms. Petra Louisa, our very own Public Relations Officer, for her outstanding job in leading today's proceedings with such grace and professionalism. To the Gender-Based Violence Unit, we extend appreciation to the staff of the Ministry of Social Development, including the SEED Unit, Community Development, Grenville Sub-Office, and all other team members. Your support and dedication and efforts in mobilizing communities are pivotal as we strive to educate and empower the Grenadian people, Carriacou and Petit-Martinique as well, on gender-based violence. We are grateful to the principal, Ms. Jeffrey, for allowing us to use this building for this insightful session this afternoon. Your collaboration has been invaluable. A heartfelt thank you to Principal Batiste of Telescope Primary School for encouraging students, parents to attend this afternoon session. Your support in fostering community involvement is deeply appreciated. To the community members who joined us here, special thank you for your willingness to engage and discuss this critical issue of gender-based violence. Your presence makes a difference in collective efforts. We acknowledge the support of community groups, civil society organizations, and NGOs who have partnered with us throughout our series of community engagement. Your collaboration strengthens our outreach and impact. A special thank you to Mikey Life for his continuous support in promoting and broadcasting our efforts to educate the public on gender-based violence matters. Your contribution in raising awareness is invaluable. To the dedicated staff of the Gender-Based Violence Unit, your tireless commitment to assisting victims, survivors, and your efforts in educating the nation on the crucial topic are commendable. We do not think without you that would have been possible. Lastly, thank you to our online viewers for joining us and engaging in such meaningful and important dialogue. To everyone present today, both physically and virtually, thank you for your support, your commitment, and for being present with us today in this gender-based violence session. To the member from the Royal Grenada Police Force, Mr. Paul, thank you very much for that instrumental. I think that was very, very well done. Let's put our hands together for him again. I saw some of us kind of rocking and, enjoying and so on. And by way of information, as we conclude, the Royal Grenada Police Force of the Eastern Division will be having a town hall meeting at the Deluxe Cinema at 7 p.m. tonight. And we want to encourage persons to support this initiative. It promises to be great. It promises to be a healthy discussion. So let's go out there and support. So thank you one and all. We are now dismissed. We have refreshments on the outside. Do have yourselves a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Before we dismiss, I'd like to invite our permanent secretary, Mrs. Jeremiah, to do some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. A pleasant good afternoon to all my brethren here and community persons. I just want to say I'm very thankful to you for coming out this afternoon. I want to just remind you to share what you learn to your neighbors and your families, your friends. There's nothing wrong in having boundaries in your sex life. Persons choose not to have sex until they are married. Persons choose to make decisions with their lives. You should respect that and not turn to violence. Also, to the women out there who may be abusive to their partners also, you need to speak out too. Not just the women are going out with the crowd, but there are some women who are violent against, and are very abusive, and they remain in the dark and continue to abuse all their partners year upon year, and there are nobody speaking out. So let us check ourselves. We at the ministry continue to put no tolerance on all forms of violence. And emotional violence, that is very rampant. Persons do not know that they are being abused. When you have a partner who controlling you, control your phone, control everything. You are not a person, you are just there, and you are being controlled. Financial abuse. We want to stamp out all forms of violence in Grenada to make it a happy place to be, a place where children can strive and families can grow. And do enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and we continue to educate our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierre Jeremiah. We encourage each of you to actively challenge and change harmful societal expectations and that perpetuate gender-based violence. This involves promoting respectful and healthy relationships and speaking out against stereotypes and norms that justify or normalize violence. It's crucial to support survivors of GBV and to advocate for mental health resources. This means providing a listening ear, understanding their needs, and pushing for better access to mental health services for those impacted by GBV. Engage with our campaigns and educational events. Your involvement helps spread awareness and support. Also, please provide feedback on our efforts to help us improve and better address the needs of our community. Once again, thank you to everyone, those who are here, those who have joined us online, here at home and in the diaspora, for your attendance and active participation. Your involvement and commitment play a key role in creating a safer and more supportive environment for everyone. Again, I'm Petra Louison, the Public Relations Officer at the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. And to those of you here, we want to wish you a safe journey back to your respective homes. Thank you and good night. Oh, one more thing. Let's just be reminded of the numbers that you can call. Well, you know you can contact the Royal Grenada Police Force and also the Ministry of Social and Community Development at 440-2269 or 417-6167. That's the Gender-Based Violence Unit Helpline. Again, 440-2269 or 417-6167. Thank you.